Welcome to the first episode of Talking Shenmue, where we break down each episode of Shenmue the Animation with members of Megavisions and the Shenmue community. Before we begin, I want to introduce our panel for this week. We have Scotty, Antichrist, and Graham. How's it going, fellas?
Yo.
Let's get sweaty.
It's good to have the gang all back again. But before we jump into it, I want to give each of you an opportunity to tell the listeners a little bit about your personal history with the Shenmue series. Graham, we'll jump with you first. What can you tell us about your personal history with Shenmue?
Oh, God. Well, I got it back on the Dreamcast when it first launched in the UK. And it's one of those games that I was following like for ages, like back when the Dreamcast magazine first came out and everything, and like just following this game that looked amazing. And I grew up on like martial arts movies and stuff, and I remember like reading all about this game. This is insane. Like you can go anywhere, do anything, kind of thing. I know you can't really do that in the actual game, but the way they were talking about it was like, this sounds so good. And then I got the game, and I know there's some people who find it kind of boring, but I loved every second of it. So just getting in there, like the opening scene to the game was just blew my mind. The graphics, the animation, the way they did it, so good. And then just exploring just simple things like going into Ryo's bedroom and opening a drawer and being like, oh my God, this is so cool. So yeah, I love the franchise. I don't know if I'm like necessarily an expert about it. I don't know as much as some people, but I really enjoy the games. And yeah, so I mean, that's me. I freaking love it. And obviously got Shenmue 2 on the Dreamcast over here because I know in America you guys didn't get it. But yeah, when it came out over here, I was like, this is so good. And it's such a good game. So I'm really excited for the animation. So yeah, this is awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Antichrist, over to you. What are your thoughts or history with Shenmue, I should say?
Cool. So I am the young man in the group. I think when the Dreamcast was coming out, my family couldn't afford a Dreamcast, so I didn't get exposed to everything that was the Dreamcast until way later in like senior year of high school or junior year of high school. And I tried it. I tried it a lot, and I hate it. I hate Shenmue. Yakuza is a better Shenmue 100 times over. So like I like the framework that the Shenmue games laid out so that Yakuza can fly and be what it is today. Yeah, that's really all I think I should say right now.
No, that's fine. Here, I said this, I think, in the podcast last week or the week before, but Shenmue is not a game that's for everyone. It certainly is not. It is a very unique game. And at the time, it was a groundbreaking game. And if you kind of go back and try to play it nowadays, you have to go in with a very open mind because it doesn't necessarily, the controls and stuff, it doesn't equate very well to today's standards. So anyway, I hope though that this anime might be a good opportunity for you to get into the Shenmue lore a little bit more. Since the games weren't your cup of tea, but I understand where you're coming from. Scotty, I know you have a lot of history with the Shenmue series. You and I did a whole playthrough of was it Shenmue 1 or 2? I can't remember now when we did that. It was Shenmue 2. That's right, because that was the first time actually I completed Shenmue 2 with you and I playing together. That was awesome. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about you and Shenmue.
That was a lot of fun. For those wondering, it was like an 8-episode excursion of the second game, which I was solely using as an excuse for me to finally play that game and prep for 3, which I still have not played.
That was time well spent.
That was back on the sideshow. So if anybody wants to look up the Megavision sideshow, that's when we did that. But the first game I got for Christmas when it came out. And it was one of the 2 games I got for Christmas. I got this, and in the States, it's called Jet Grind Radio. Jet Grind Radio is great. Dragula, it's got everything. It's got Dragula. Shenmue, I hated. I did not understand why the magazines told me to get this game. I didn't understand why it was cool to run around. I hated it as a 16-year-old dumb child. And so fast forward, and I decide I'm going to pick it up again, like in my 20s, and I really liked it. And the third disc was broken. Like, it had been, like, in my college travels, the third disc was just, like, in 4 even pieces. So something must have, like, landed right on it. And so I'm like, but I like this game now. What will I do? And I'm only telling this story just to make people hate me. I bought Shenmue, again, for $8 at a retro shop at that time. And I love the first game. I played it recently for Extra Life on Extra Life Day for 12 straight hours of it. It definitely is not for everyone, but those that love it. There's nothing in between. There's really like those that hate it and those that love it. Well, I take that back. I feel like there's a fan base or an opinion in between that is, I respect what this has done, but Jesus, I cannot play this. You know, because it still has done some things that games do not tackle. And then I never really played the second one because when the Dreamcast died, I went to GameCube, and I never got Shenmue 2. I got Shenmue 2 on Xbox, even though I never even owned an Xbox at that time, original Xbox. So, and then eventually played it for the Shenmue journey we did, and very much enjoyed the second game. I will say that I don't know which one I like better, but that's not what we're here for. I'm very happy that this anime exists, though, because years ago in another life on another Sega site, I did a Dreamcast. It was called the Dream Podcast, and I said, just finish Shenmue in an anime. That's the only way we're ever going to get any more of it. I know that's not the best way to do it, so I called it, and I want money somehow for predicting this. I don't know.
No, that's great. Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is what everyone's really excited about, because I think we all kind of understand the likelihood of the Shenmue story being completed in video game form is probably pretty low, right? With just how slow and how much of the story unfolds with each kind of chapter or game. So I think this is probably the most likely scenario in which we get to actually complete the Shenmue storyline, whether it be in anime or maybe even manga form later on. But anyway, that was a good recap, Scotty. That was very good times playing Shenmue
fun.
2.
It was like we had like a book club essentially, because we're like ragging each other. One of my favorite things, like honestly, one of my favorite moments in just the goofy podcasts that we do and everything was when Graham joined you and me for that once, Chris. And he had not, I don't think he had listened to the episodes. He hadn't been on the episodes, which was totally fine. Nope. But you and I, Chris, are just talking about our impressions of Rio, like traveling to Hong Kong on a bus and like standing in the middle of the bus like a psychopath. So and it was so great because we had been continuing this portrayal of Rio. We didn't realize until Graham was like, I love how you guys have basically just decided that he is an emotionally stunted psychopath trying to find these people.
But it made so much sense as well. Like, I just didn't twig in my brain, and then you guys talking, I was like, oh my god, you're so right about this.
Yeah, that's one of the things is that Ryu is just a very awkward guy, especially in the second game. He just does some really weird things that it just puts people off. And I think that that's one of the things I also was excited to see going into this anime is how are they going to deal with that, and are they going to be able to make this story a little bit more I guess in a serious tone without some of the campiness and some of the awkwardness that Ryu is constantly doing, standing up in a bus as it's traveling up a mountain. That is, sit down, son, and put a seatbelt on.
Yeah, I feel like the word is palatable. We're hoping this anime will make Shenmue more palatable.
Absolutely.
You know?
For me, I'll quickly say, Shenmue, I was so hyped for the original Shenmue coming out. I fell like all in on all the hype. I read all the magazines. I was so excited for it. And I will say, it was the best gift that my ex-wife ever got me for Christmas was that year of Shenmue's release. I got the original the Shenmue, and that was awesome. So I played it. I absolutely loved the games and stuff. So I've always been in the same mind as you, Scotty. Just to kind of quickly finish, is that I agree that I think the series would probably be best served to kind of complete out as an anime. So that's what I'm so excited about for this. series that's finally come to us, and that's why we wanted to do Talking Shenmue, where we can talk about each episode, break it all down, and that's what we're going to be doing. So the basic format is we'll be rotating members, and we want to get members of the Shenmue community as well. So if you're listening to this and you're part of the community, you're really, passionate about Shenmue, reach out, let us know. Maybe you could jump onto the show with us one of these days. But the basic format is we're basically just going to run down and recap the episode, go into each scene and talk about that. It will also point out some of the points or parts where the anime and the game differ a little bit. And so I think that'll be a fun thing to kind of keep an eye on as the story unfolds. We only get a small glimpse in this first episode. It's only like 24 minutes or so. A lot actually happens. I will say this. A lot does happen in this first episode. So I think it's going to be cool to see how it unfolds. But if you're new to Shenmue the Animation and you don't really know a lot about it and you're new into Shenmue, I want to quickly give you some basic information before we jump into episode 1, which was titled Thunderclap, which is a pretty ominous title there. So Shenmue the Animation airs every Saturday at 12:30 a.m. EST. What a time slot that is, huh? And it's streaming on Adult Swim, which has the dubbed version, and Crunchyroll has the subbed version. And the anime is a co-production between both of those companies, and Telecom Animation is doing the animation duties with Sakurai Chikara, who's best known for One Punch Man. He's serving as the director. And it's also cool, we pointed this out before, but I do want to kind of reiterate it, that the Sega legend himself and Shenmue creator Yu Suzuki is overseeing as the show's executive producer. And I was reading some old articles today, just doing a little bit of research, and I can't remember who it was, but one of the people working on the anime was saying that Yu Suzuki gave them a ton of notes of stuff that never got into the games, just notes about characters, side stories, and all this other stuff. So there's stuff that we might be seeing in this anime that Yu Suzuki actually wrote for the game but just never made it in. And so that's going to be really cool to see as we kind of continue on with this. So, but let's jump in to the intro of episode 1, the Thunderclap. So the whole anime begins with a glimpse of actually the final scene of Shenmue 2 with Ryu and Shenhua.
Not expecting that.
Wow, in the stone pit in Guilin, standing in front of the giant replicas of the dragon and phoenix mirror. And over that, we hear Shenhua's voice reciting the poem. I want to talk about this really quick because I saw this and I immediately got chills and all the feels, and it came rushing back to me. I was like, oh my God, what is this? But this is a really interesting way to kind of start the show. I mean, because that's kind of a big spoiler right there, right out of the get-go. What do you guys think of that?
It's kind of an anime fashion to have a ton of crap go on in the intro song that you're like, who's this? Who's that? Who's that? Ooh, isn't that a bad guy? Why is he hanging out with him? Like all this stuff that's essentially spoilers if you know what you're looking at. So it kind of made sense, but also, to be completely honest, I thought are you fucking telling me that they started with the wrong episode and this is episode 12 or something? I really thought that for a second, because I just had an experience with another show where I thought I just bought episode 1, but it was called Post 1 episode 10, and I'm like, what's happening? So that's what I thought.
They accidentally air the season finale at the beginning.
Yeah,
You do that?
You love
pulled
to
a
see
Fox TV thing or something.
Oh,
yeah.
God, yeah.
God.
I really liked it. I thought it was a really good opening because it kind of made sense with her sort of telling the poem. Because the poem sets the scene for Shenmue, back when they did the initial teaser trailers for the games and stuff and everything. So to me, it kind of really works. And I liked, even though it's kind of a spoiler alert, it does bring some intrigue. You're like, oh, what is going on here? And then it kicks into the main show. And I actually quite like that. And I actually made a note of this about how I like how it starts in the cave, basically. I thought it was a great idea, rather than the way it starts in the game. So I think that wouldn't make as much sense. That wouldn't set the scene as well as what this did, I feel.
That's cool. And it also shows you right away that it is going to still follow kind of closely with the game storyline. You know what, that you're going to get to that point. How we get there, we don't know, but right away we know how we're gonna get there. So, Anti-Chris, anything you got?
Well, yeah. So like, obviously, I've never finished Shenmue 2, but I could say like from a thematic standpoint, it's definitely giving you the end point of like, you know, that at some point Ryo is going to get to this point, hanging out with this chick, getting in front of the two mirrors, which you learn about their significance a little bit later on in the episode. So like, from a person on the outside looking in, this is a very common trope that you see in anime. It is, you know, setting goalposts, so to say. So it's to me, it's nothing special, but it was done well, and I think that's what's important. So.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so now we flash back to November 1986 in Yokosuka, Japan. And it's basically right before where the game begins. And Ryo is preparing for a karate tournament. And we see it's kind of neat because we get to see a little glimpse of what Ryo's life was like before Lon Deef showed up and just fucked everything up. And it was
I loved this.
Yeah. I'll bleep that one out. That was not in the script. I'll say that. But it was neat because we do get to see what kind of life was like at the Hazuki residence before that day. With Ina-san and Fuku-san, they're cheering and encouraging Ryo before he leaves for the tournament. I don't know why, but Fuku-san tells him that he can't make it to the tournament, but he just knows that Ryo's going to win. Oh, that was kind of funny. It's like, if you're that, like, why can't you go and show your support? It's like, right, it's in town. What do you got to do, Fuku-san? Like, no one
really
goes.
Gotta sweep the dojo. Sorry,
Yeah,
bro.
I got to get my ass kicked later. I got to train for that.
Yeah.
That's some foreshadowing. But then also Ina-san tells him that she's going to make him a special meal to kind of celebrate. So I think either win or lose, Ina-san's got his back. That's pretty nice. And they remind him also. So this is kind of an ongoing theme that you'll see, which I thought is really interesting because it adds a whole new, I think, kind of maybe internal struggle that maybe Ryo has to deal with as a young man going into adulthood. But they say basically, like, if he wins, this could put him on an important step into getting into any university that he wants to. So this is kind of a big deal for Ryo as he, looks to kind of make that next step in his life. And so then he leaves. He walks into the kind of the courtyard there, and he sees his father Iwao talking to Yamagishi-san by the koi pond, and they're kind of talking about the fish and things there. And as Ryo greets them and he's telling me he's about to leave, Yamagishi-san reminds Ryo to stay focused, and his dad Iwao, in only how Iwao likes to do this, he basically just bluntly tells Ryo, he's like, "It's still not enough. You must push harder, so keep that in mind." And Ryo's like, "God, okay." He kind of laughs it off, and he's like, "I can never make sense of your advice, Dad." And he kind of leaves. But this was an interesting kind of interaction here between Ryo and his father. What were your guys' thoughts like right here?
Yeah, it was for me. It was kind of it felt like a kind of typical anime sort of trope for me in this instance. Obviously, in the game, we didn't get to. We saw little bits of flashbacks in the games and stuff, but we didn't really see as much as what we've seen even in this first episode of the anime. And it felt like, yeah, Ryo was just kind of being like the trendy modern 80s teenager, sort of like going, "Yeah, Dad, I don't really get what you're saying. Like you're being harsh with me," and like Dad's like just being, the tough but loving father who doesn't really explain himself. But he doesn't need to explain himself. He's the dad. He's in charge. I don't know. It's, to me, it felt fine. Like I liked that we did get to see some insight into their relationship a bit more, but to me, it didn't really add a huge amount to the story yet. I don't know if something more is going to come out in the next episode or two. So yeah, I don't know. What are you guys thinking?
I think it was that one line was awkward when him saying with Ryo saying, "I still don't understand your lessons" or something like that. I mean, it had to be said, but it felt so weird.
Yeah.
But I think it was good because it was like, "You're my son. You better listen to me." He also, I don't think he said "good luck" or anything like that, so it showed that he's stern, but he's aware. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was good just to show actual character interaction.
I think that what the opening scene is trying to do is that, you know, everyone's saying it's like, oh, the trendy 80s teen, but it's really showing the fact that Rio is set apart from the rest of society, and you definitely see that later on, because he lives a very traditional style, like traditional Japanese style lifestyle. You know, their family is wearing traditional clothes and kimonos and sashes and stuff like that. His father is in full like gi attire, and he's kind
ready
of
to kick ass at a moment's notice.
Yeah, and he's kind of like stuck in between those two worlds perpetually, right? So he's got to live his school life, but he comes home and he's got to focus, and he's got to study, and like the entire thing where it's just like. His dad is just like, you're not ready. I'm just constantly thinking of like Akuma from Street Fighter, and just go to Rio. You have to learn what is it called? The Satsui no Hado, in order to like become like a full-fledged warrior. And it's like, it's the stupid quotes where it's just like Rio is just like, the answer lies in the heart of battle, or some stupid ass shit like that. And it's like, okay, Dad, whatever. I'm gonna go to school now.
Yeah.
That was a funny kind of interaction, but I do think it serves a couple purposes, though, because we will see in a little bit that Ryu may kind of overestimate his own abilities, and I think Iwao, he knows what true martial arts masters are capable of, and he knows how far Ryu actually has to go to really attain his full potential, and I think he's just trying to keep his son on that line. As kind of a father and his kind of master, right? So
it's kind of like
that was
the differences between like being a professional and playing varsity football. You know what I mean? There's
levels.
Someone
to these
definitely
things.
acknowledges like, yeah, you might be cool at school, but you ain't shit, son.
Right. So okay, speaking of school, we'll jump to our next scene where we're now at the 1986 Kanagawa Prefectural High School Karate Tournament. I feel like there's going to be like a Cobra Kai style episode, 20
That's what
years
I
from
thought,
now.
because I just finished season 4. I just finished season 4, and my brain was like, wait, is Danny
Cobra
over there
Kai,
doing
Cobra
something? Like, is he going to just jump
Kai.
in? I'm like, wait, no, that's a different era. That's a different country.
Miyagi-Do rolls up in there.
Yeah.
But basically, right away, we see Ryu just basically kicking everyone's butt so badly to the point that he even points out that like no one has even scores a point against him in the whole tournament. So he quickly kind of runs through the competition and kind of single-handedly puts his team in the finals, which apparently this team has just kind of come out of nowhere because Ryu has recently joined the team and he's by far the best karate practitioner on the team. And so he's now in the finals against the reigning champion, who I don't think ever gets a name, but he's very overly cocky and just very smarmy. He's that like face that you just want to punch.
Totally pulled out of Cromartie High. Like, that's the best way I could put it.
Right on.
Yeah. Wears his sunglasses while fighting. That's right. If you notice, he's still wearing his sunglasses. He's fighting in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty cool. Until you get your ass kicked, then you look like an idiot. But so there's the scene of the two teams kind of confronting each other, and the other team is talking trash and saying stuff like, who's about to get their ass kicked, or we're gonna swat them like a fly. And I think they even say like, where do they go, noob high? Which I thought was like, really?
Yeah.
That's all you got there, right?
That might have been an English dub exclusive. That was not.
Could be, yeah.
No, they said, I watched both of them, and both things they called him dweeb high. And at first I thought he said weeb high, but yeah.
That would be on point.
Still goofy.
And so, I mean, I don't even think Ryu even like really cares that much. He kind of brushed him aside, but his teacher anyway pulls him aside and tells Ryu to stay focused, and if he can win, they basically win the tournament. And so it jumps to the two finally squaring off. The referee starts the match, and his opponent just runs straight at him, and Ryu just gives like a punch right to the chest. It's like, boom, KO. And that's it. And the guy's like, one punch. Yeah. And in a badass move. I mean, this is like right out of the ending to like a Street Fighter, like cutscene after the match. Ryu tells him, there's no reason to feel bad. it's not your fault. No one has ever landed a punch on me in a match before. I was like, oh shit. Ryu was talking some trash. I loved it. But I do think though that this is just one of those examples I was telling you earlier that maybe some overconfidence that Ryu has going on here. What did you guys make of this scene?
Yeah, one thing for me is I actually found it quite interesting that there's a differentiator between the game and the anime here, in that in the game, even though we know that Ryo does know some martial arts, he's still very much a beginner. But I guess that's kind of in the game. You have to sort of build yourself up and fight and stuff. Whereas this, he's showing to be a very proficient fighter from the get go. Yeah, maybe maybe it shows overshadowing of his overconfidence, but like he can beat everyone with one punch. He doesn't get hit, basically, as he sort of says to the guy he fights. In fact, it's funny that you said at the start that one of the guys behind One Punch Man was on this, because in my notes I've written Ryo is One Punch Man. Yeah, I think that's quite a good little differentiator between the game and the show. And I guess in the game there's a purpose for that, because games you can't just be great from the beginning of the game, really. So yeah, I really like that. There was one little side note that I want to just bring up, in that I don't know if you guys noticed, but when Ryo wins, you see the or like his friends are like cheering, going yeah, and the teacher seems to be standing there crying, like with his hands. Like I was like, I just didn't understand that bit. I was like, what happened there? Did I miss something? I watched it twice. I was like,
the purpose of that character at all.
It could be like the oh crap, he just killed another child. Like, what are you gonna do?
Ryo murdered a kid again, and
I gotta tell the parents about this.
To the insurance company. Oh god.
That's hilarious. I did notice that, Graham. I didn't write it down because I just didn't understand what was happening. But it apparently, yeah, he was. I thought maybe it was because he overheard Ryo talking and basically, I didn't know what it could have been, but I assumed maybe it had something to do with that. But anyway,
okay, so again, this is further showing the audience that there is a distinct difference between Ryo and pretty much anyone else that is around him in his life, and it's showing that Ryo is special. Right, that it's kind of like setting the stage to show Ryo is the chosen one. He's set apart from the rest of his community and whatever, and he's very, very proficient at what he does. And that's I think that's just the point of the tournament arc that you're seeing here. Your 2-minute tournament arc that just comes and goes like that. It's like, oh yeah, no one's ever beaten me. And I'm just like, okay, so this is your power level, so to say, starting off, where it's just like, okay, I can beat up Cromartie High thugs. Got it.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere.
That this was in there, though. I love that they had this background to him, because it really, I mean, so far we've seen nothing that's happened in the game, and I like that because I don't know that I do see where you're coming from in terms of him being shown as the chosen one, but I think it just shows us that like he is not just some idiot who his teacher or his dad happens to teach martial arts. Like, he actually is really good at this, because it kind of looks like that's basically been his life. But getting all of that leads up to, like, when I first played the game and you see the intro, I didn't have any not relevance, what is it, like, comparison. Like, I didn't understand, like, okay, I'm just now seeing Ryo, of course he's getting his butt kicked, because I haven't seen him fight anybody, so I don't even know if he knows how to fight, and he just gets thrown into this. But we're getting all this, and he like won the tournament, and he's also, I didn't take him saying no one has ever laid a punch on me as confidence. I really thought that was setting up emotionally stunted Ryo, who's just stating a fact, who is just like he says that every time someone asks him a question.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I don't think he's being cocky. It's literally like it's literally like the main character from One Punch Man. He was just like, yep, this is life.
Yeah. Like, he
sorry,
was just
you had to get in the way.
Yeah, like that is just what his job or something. So, but I really like that we got this background of how he is essentially a proficient teen in terms of martial arts, and until his dad clearly could kick his ass whenever, and he doesn't know why, because he's just a cool teen.
We do get to see a little bit, and I think we get to see a little bit more in the next scene. But I think this shows how much of I think it makes Ryo more of a likable character at this early point than even the game did, because you do see how dedicated he is, and you can see he's taking it seriously. He's not a punk high school kid. Because I'll tell you what, when I was in high school, I would like there's no way you could get me doing all some of this stuff, but I love it. So anyway, after the tournament, let's jump into the next scene. Okay, so the next scene is following the tournament, like you said, but we do get a quick shot between that of the black car and a glimpse of Londi looking all badass and glimmering in that green dragon robes. I would say this about Londi: the man knows how to dress. He looks awesome all the time. Definitely a 10, that Londi. Then we quickly jump back to see Ryu and his friends walking home. Ryu, again, in his gi, where the rest of his friends are in their, I guess, school uniforms, right? Even the teacher is hanging on in the back, and they're talking about they want to go celebrate, and they invite Ryu to go to kind of celebrate the victory. But Ryu politely refuses, telling them that he has to go home and train with his father some more, and he also has that meal from Ine-san waiting on him. So you can't skip Ine-san's meals. I don't know what exactly he was having, but I'm sure it was going to be amazing.
Family is important to him. That's what you get from it.
That's pretty much it.
And the next scene is awesome, because we get to see our old buddy Tom Johnson slinging wieners in front of Tom's hot dog truck.
I was so excited when I saw that.
Same here.
And just like the good old days, he's just living his best life, slinging wieners, like I said, serving customers, and grooving to the beats on that awesome stereo of his. I will say, I don't know if you noticed, and some other websites have pointed it out, but the truck and the menu and basically everything is taken identical from the game. And so I thought that was a very cool touch.
Yeah.
What do you guys think here?
I would, as soon as I was watching with Rachel, my fiance, and I was like, yes, the most problematic but the best character in the first game. But I was very excited to see Tom.
Yeah.
This is one example. I'll go here and then I'll touch back to you guys for 1 second. Tom offers Ryu a hot dog, and he's basically like, I got a hot dog with your name on it, and you know it's good. Ryu turns down the offer, telling him he's still on his way to practice. So before we leave Tom, again, I just wanted to say that before we jumped in. Graham, what was your thoughts on this scene?
The notes I wrote down was, Tom is awesome. So glad they kept him in, because just like Scotty, as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, I guess he's in it. So good. And I love how chill he is as well. Like you say, when Rio turns down his offer, he's like, no worries. Kind of like, yeah, you do you, sort of thing. Carry on.
That's hilarious.
Thumbs up.
So good.
Anti-Chris, have anything here?
I don't have a fucking comment.
Oh, the Tom's
Chris
awesome.
has not been graced with the presence of Tom in the video game.
So good.
Right up.
I saw that. I'm just like, I hope this is a thing in the game, because if it's not,
Yeah,
Oh, it's a thing. It's a whole
they're
thing.
definitely gonna just probably skip over a good bit of what Tom says in the game, but it's for the better.
Tom needs to have his own spin-off. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Hell yeah, I would wear the shirt that Tom wears, which Tom is wearing a shirt with himself on it, so you know a guy is cool when he's got that on.
So in the next scene, I thought this was a really cool scene. We're finally introduced to Nozomi, and you know what? I will say this: I didn't remember that her last name was Harasaki. Did not remember that at all until he refers to her that many times just as Harasaki, which is weird because I think in the game he always refers to her as Nozomi, right?
I actually made a note of this, but I didn't know that, and I swear they just called it Nozomi in the game.
They're just trying to establish that Rio is placing her hard in the friend zone. So we are not on first name basis. We are not there.
That's funny. We do get a glimpse of this, and let me kind of explain this next scene. We do get a glimpse of that. So, as I said, Nozomi, we get to see her. She is in an argument with Inoki and Nagashima in the park. They're trying to beat up a little kid who apparently made Inoki drop his ice cream, and he's sitting there crying and just wants to beat up a little kid for it, apparently.
I sympathize.
Apparently, this is one other departure from the game. Apparently, in the game, Inoki was mad because the kid hit him with a toy airplane. And so he wanted to beat him up for that, too.
And I think it happens later in the game as well. It's after
does.
the next scene, isn't it? Yeah, I made a note of that.
Yep. So Nagashimi pushes Nozomi to the ground, and that's basically when Ryu appears and puts a stop to that, and it basically kicks both their asses pretty easily. And you see Nozomi like have those like admirable eyes and just shimmer. You just see like, oh my god, Ryu is the coolest dude ever, and he's just like, he helps her get up, hands her, gives her this handkerchief. He's like, hey girl, dust yourself off. I'm bouncing. And I mean, that's basically what happens. Yeah. What were
Except
you guys?
he doesn't say or act like that at all. He's
Right.
still just a very, you are dirty handkerchief.
He's like, clean yourself off. Oh my god.
Just want to go up to him and be like, "You're a sociopath."
Yeah, but we should also point out, though, like, the way he fights these guys, he doesn't even take off his backpack. He's holding it over one shoulder, and he just lays them down with his left, or just one arm, basically. So I'm like, oh, as if the karate tournament didn't, like, nail this into our head. He's a freaking badass. He knows his moves.
He could kick basically anyone's ass, like, in town. Like, all the local people, he could kick their asses pretty easily, I think,
It shows he's been spending a lot of time in the parking lot just practicing the moves over and over again.
That's right.
What you do.
Yeah,
Small
That's right.
town.
So.
One little side thing which actually happened just before this, which I don't know if you guys picked up on. There's a bit where Rio's, before he gets to the park, he notices the snow falling, which in the game was like a key plot point thing. It's like in the game it seemed like an amazing thing. It's like that day the snow fell, and I actually quite liked
snow
it.
Turned to rain.
I just quite liked it that they mentioned the snow. Like I thought that was kind of like they somehow managed to weave it into it, even though it's
like that's the thing is it makes sense for this to be an anime, because in like I don't know, an American or just like any other cartoon, if the character just said, "Oh, it's snowing," like that seems dumb, but it fits in an anime.
Yeah, because in anime they always say exactly what they're thinking in their head, like, "Oh no, you're the best person I've ever fought. Oh no, I must run away."
Yep.
So now we're at the Hazuki residence, and now we're getting to the point in the show where it's actually kind of where the game begins, right? And we immediately see the sky darkening. There's kind of a noticeable shift in the mood as Ryu's running up his driveway and into the Hazuki residence. As he's approaching the house, he sees the black car parked in front, and he's kind of and then he notices the Hazuki dojo sign broken in half on the stairs and the steps, and I think at that point he knows something's wrong. He runs in into the that main area, and he sees Ine-san lying by the koi pond. He runs up to her and picks her up, and she tells him not to worry about her, that the master is the one who's in trouble. And so Ryu leaves her, runs around, and as he's approaching the dojo, the doors burst open, and Fukusan flies out and is basically kicked out of the dojo. And then as Ryu approaches the doors themselves, we see Iwao and Landi face off, actually. And there's a sequence that begins that just is pretty amazing, and it's very brutal and swift. Landi is basically just cuts through Iwao like he's nothing, and it was crazy to see. And he as Iwao is lying on the ground, Ryu runs over to see, check on him, and then his kind of concern turns to rage, and he turns around and shouts at Landi, "You bastard!" before just charging in, basically kind of like what the guy did in the tournament. And Landi, he strikes first and with his slash to Ryu's face, which gives him that kind of infamous cut on his face. And I'm not sure if that was ever, I don't know if that was ever shown in the game or was ever officially recognized, but here we have it, right?
Yeah. I've actually got a note of that saying now we know why he has the well, we call it a plaster, the band-aid, on like on his face, because they never show that in the game. I guess they don't show blood in the game because maybe it was too hard to program, or they didn't want it too graphic. But no, that was I'm glad you picked up on that, because that was cool. I really like that as well, because it makes sense now. Yes.
What doesn't make sense is why Ryu just his skin refuses to heal after like 2 years of a cut on his cheek. So anyway,
unless he's like
it's a
Nelly.
reminder.
Didn't Nelly wear like a band-aid on his face?
He
Because
did.
his friend was in jail or something.
He did.
I
I
know
was
for the same reason his dad was killed in their dojo.
Fair enough.
and then Londi quickly lands a palm thrust, knocking Ryu to the ground and saying that he's not ready to fight him. And I thought it was just crazy how it shows how different of a gap there is between the skill, between Londi and Ryu. And I think this goes back earlier to what his father was telling him, is like, you are not ready, like you have way much further to go. And we kind of see a little bit of that now. And then we see basically it's the same kind of scene that happens in the game. Londi is telling Iwao to let him, give him the location of the mirror, and he won't tell him, and then he goes over to Ryu and is going to kill him. And then he finally tells Londi the location of the mirror. And then there's also a moment where Londi asks if he remembers Zhao Sunming. And I thought that was kind of interesting as well. So what were your guys' thoughts of this little part right here?
Sorry. Was that in the game? Does he state his name in the game? Because I honestly do not remember that.
I'm pretty sure he does.
Okay.
I'm sure he says like, yeah. Do you remember? I can't pronounce his name. Chris, I can't say anyone's names these days.
I said Zhao Sunming, but I don't know if that is the proper.
Okay, yeah. The man you killed or whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure he says that.
Okay.
Interesting.
I guess I just blocked that out somehow because that's a pretty big deal.
Unless I'm completely forgetting that. I should have rewatched the opening to
yeah, I thought about doing that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, as I was talking, I was going to say I loved this whole thing simply because it was almost a shot-for-shot remake of the game, and I thought that was brilliant. Like the sign on the floor, Ine-san, Fuku-san flying through the doors. Then also in the dojo, like the bit when he picks up Ryu, like from the neck basically, and like pulls out his hand, like that. The camera angle and everything, and the movements, just like now tell me where is the mirror, basically. That was awesome. Loved
That
it.
is really why I'm so excited for this, because nothing against the game, because limitations and whatever with the hardware, but I never felt like the actually hitting blows had the impact that they wanted in the game itself. But in this one, you see that his dad's ribs are in pieces right now because that blow went through him. Like, it did not stop. Like, that was the intent. It's like Landy was aiming for the space behind his father, not his father. He's done. Like, you actually see that now.
And so then Londi gets the mirror and leaves. He leaves the dojo, and then we actually see the snow change to rain, which is a really neat moment there. Scotty, you kind of alluded to it earlier.
Completely over my head again. So.
That's a small thing.
Oh, I guarantee you it'll be mentioned at least 5 times in the next episode.
Right. And so then and so Ryu's holding a dying Iwao in his arms, and Iwao tells Ryu to keep your friends and those that you love close to you before he finally passes away. And so that was just a very powerful scene. And from there we cut quickly to the docks, and it seems like it's maybe right after this happened, and it's Londi sitting in the black car, telling one of his black suited henchmen to basically go find the other mirror. And then the camera pans up, and we see Chai spying on a rooftop basically nearby. He overhears this, and he knows now that Londi is searching for the other mirror, and he's going, I guess in his mind, to go and find it. And man, if he doesn't look like Smeagol or Gollum before, he certainly does in this scene, don't you think? I was just gonna say, this next scene I thought was really interesting because we didn't actually get to see any of this part in the game. We're back at the Hazuki residence, and where there's some police detectives. They're talking to Ine-san and Fuku-san. I think Ryu is there as well. Ine-san, it gives the detective some documents, basically all of Iwao's documents that people he was associated with. They tell him that they're gonna do their investigation, and they leave. I guess in the game, this never happened, but there is a bit where you can call the number to the police station, but then Ryu tries to call, but he just basically sets the receiver down and says there's no point involving the police. So, so if you ever wondered why did he just call the cops? Well, apparently they wouldn't care anyway. But
Ryu doesn't understand phones. That's why.
I made a note of that. I'm glad you brought this up because I made a note of it saying it's interesting that we actually get to see the police looking to investigate his father's death, because in the game it felt like it was never addressed and people just seemed like the next day people seemed to carry on with their life. And Rio was just like walking around asking questions, which I think as a kid I never really got that. But it's like later on I was like, how come he never called the police? Why weren't they involved?
That did bother me first playing the game too. It's like, why? This is such a small town. Like, where's the Andy Griffith? Because there's no way like the state police give a shit about this happening. Like, what's going on here? You know?
Nah, Rio's a real one. He knows the popo ain't shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I always thought too that Lon D being in organized crime probably has the police paid off at this point too. So that's how I always kind of thought in my head and kind of figured that out. So that's why I assumed that the police weren't too involved in this. I don't know. I'm talking shit. So
I mean, that's what we had back then, though, with this game. Even though it was so story driven, we kind of created our own world and stuff because there wasn't a whole lot of.
You're filling in the gaps. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
That makes sense.
And so the police, they leave, and Ryu's basically standing there and just basically wondering aloud, like, what are they even going to basically be able to do? He wants to find out who Lon D is, and he wants to also find out if his father actually did kill somebody. But Ine-san and Fuku-san both encourage Ryu to let the police handle this and kind of let them take care of it, and they want him to focus on going to university and kind of taking that next step in his life, because that's what his father would have wanted, and he wouldn't want him to put himself in danger by going after these people by himself. Did you guys have any other thoughts on this scene right here before we jump to the next one?
Thinking about that statement now, if I was about to go to college and I just watched someone kill my dad, I don't think I'd be able to just pack up and go to school. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, all right, I'm done with my SATs. Here we go. Yeah, I don't think so.
You're right, but the game it is. You're right, and it's cool that you point that out, because they do actually kind of recognize that a little bit. And this is another example, I think, how the writing is pretty good in this game, and makes it the whole story just flow much more naturally, and give some of that. So, I guess there is a moment too in the game. Between this scene and the next, as it continues on, where Ryu has a nightmare about Lon D in between there, so we don't actually get to see that in the anime. So I wanted to point that out really quickly. And so this is another departure from the game. Then the next scene, we see Ryu sitting on a bench in Sakura Goka Park. I'm pretty sure I butchered that one, but he's kind of sitting there in silence, and you can see he's just very solemn and sad. He's watching a father play with his son on a swing set. He's pushing him, and as he's seeing that, he's kind of having flashbacks to him and his father training. And it's interesting. Like, he doesn't have the memories of getting pushed on a swing. He has memories of his dad not throwing him and teaching him, and it shows like the difference there of the kind of father that Iwao was. But even still, you could tell that they had a very strong bond, a very strong father-son relationship. And man, just talking about it, I'm kind of like, it's sad, this is a very strong moment. I thought it was very interesting to kind of see this. So what do you guys think about this scene right here?
I mean, think about the situation. And it's just like, if or when you had your parent pass away, right? It's like, where would your thoughts be? Usually be dwelling on that individual, and then any little bit of relatable content that you see, is probably going to pull at the memories that you have of that individual. So it's just like, this is normal. It's maybe Rio is not normal, but it's a normal sentiment. You know what I mean? So I'm not talking down about the anime so far, but I think that this is just my overall, the way that I'm viewing it is that there's a lot of cliche moments in this adaptation of Shenmue that can correlate back to any 80s and early 90s anime with a similar setting and tone, but it's done well. You know what I mean? It's like it's very cliche, but it's tasteful, and I think that that's what's important.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing super. There's nothing really that's going on here that is drastically
Groundbreaking.
new or whatever. We get that. So. Okay, in the next scene we see Ryu walking down the street, which is kind of almost feels like the game a bit. You see, him walking, but he's kind of talking to himself and asking if, his father could really be a man that could have, kill someone. He comes across Nozomi, and they have, she has his handkerchief and she gives it back to him. And they have kind of an awkward exchange, but I do think that they handle this pretty well, and where she's asking him how he feels and if he's okay, and she basically says, like, I don't really know what to say, but she's there if he needs any help. And I thought this was a really cute scene. She invites him to go get a hot dog at Tom's, and as she's asking him, and there's a silent moment there, and her stomach growls, and he's like, "Wait a second, are you asking me because you're just hungry or what?" And it's kind of funny, and they end up laughing about it. I thought it was a kind of a cute moment between Ryu and Nozomi, because you don't get those at all in the game. It's just a very dry and kind of awkward interaction between them most of the time, even when, Nozomi is, trying to reach out and talk to Ryu when he's going through all this. But now you get a glimpse of him kind of softening up a little bit and having a laugh, even though, he just lost his father. So what are your guys' thoughts?
I almost expected him to just walk away, and it's just like, if you need me for anything, just let me know. And he's just like, okay, bye. And even like when her stomach starts growling, and it's just like, oh, I'm hungry for the hot dog, and Rio is just like, well, just go get a hot dog, and then he just leaves.
Yeah. I was half expecting him to say, go get a hot dog then. I don't need a hot dog, I need my father. Something.
Again, really pushing that emotionally stunted young man.
Yeah,
I thought it was great though. I really liked it because this is something you never see in the game at all, and don't even get close to, especially with Ro actually laughing at something, which I thought was great, and kind of weird, but also good that it showed he has emotions. But it was a weird time because I don't know, it was strange, but also great. But
keep in mind, at this point, the only meaningful conversation Ryu, I think, even really has in the entire game was with a cat. It was when he opens up and talks like to a cat. That's the only emotional connection Ryu pretty much has in the game. So to see that we have this is a big moment for the Ryu here.
Yeah, that's true. She's no cat, but she's there.
Right. So okay, as we continue on, once they get to Tom's stand, though. There's no hot dogs on sale. Tom's not slinging wieners today, folks. I'm sorry. He had to close up shop because this black car came by and hit his truck a few days prior. And man, he's got to go get that in the shop, which is interesting though, because Nozomi also says that, hey, I almost got ran over by a black car right there. Yeah. And I think it kind of consolidates that whole bit right there, because in the game you learn about it like a little bit.
That's different. We just bypassed like 2 hours of the game.
I actually made a note on this saying I like how they did weave those are like the clues that you find in the game, which, as you say, can take a couple of hours, because you're just walking around talking to people. You go, oh, I think this person saw it. Oh, maybe that person. Go speak to them.
Yep. So I would, though, it would be great if when he does uncover a clue, if we get that little sound effect from the game.
That chime. Yeah, the notebook chime.
Like pulls out his notepad and starts writing it down, but not just in order, like a random pages.
Right. Yeah, he's like, I'll need some space for this. I'll skip like 6 pages. That's great. So Ryu, being the quick thinking and debonair man that he is, he says, how about we go get ramen instead? And so she agrees, and they go to Ajiichi Chinese restaurant. And as they're eating food, basically she's talking to him, and he's telling her a little bit about what happened, and he mentions Lan Di's name, and an old man overhears him mention his name, and the man is actually Lusan. I don't really remember him in the game all that much, but apparently him and another character in the actually Chinese restaurant are in this scene from the game. So
yeah, and again in the game, this is like hours in from memory. I remember this being a little bit later on when you get to speak to this guy about like one of the Chinese residents basically in the area. About it, and yeah, again, I quite like how it's more natural the way this has happened. Like, again, in a game, you kind of have to have progression and stuff, but yeah, it seems a bit more. Well, actually, it's a bit weird the way that in the Chinese restaurant, the guy's like, "Oh, Lan Di, you say? Never heard of him, but it sounds Chinese. Could be in the mafia."
Not only Chinese, but he sounds like he's with the cartel, I think, or something.
With a name like that, yeah,
yeah.
That's basically what he says, and then he says those unsavory types bypass the immigration system by operating out of the harbor.
Yeah.
Clue.
And racist.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we didn't say this game is not this source material is not problematic at all. So who knows?
I mean, we talked about Tom earlier, so
Yeah.
Next scene is Ryu standing outside the Hazuki residence once again, kind of wondering about what the Chinese mafia would want with his father, and he kind of dejectedly says, "There's nothing I could do even if I knew." And so he's kind of, you feel like maybe he's accepting the fact that, what can a kid do against, the mafia? So, but then he looks over and notices the door to the dojo is open, and he walks in to investigate, and then Chai, that son of a bitch, attacks him. He's hiding in wait, and this is like an awesome fight that unfolds. But this is again another out of sync moment, which doesn't happen in the game till much later in there. But basically, Chai demands he wants to know where the mirror is, and says that Ryu can't beat him at all in a fight. And you know what? Chai's kicking his ass at first. He's like super fast with those little dagger knife hand things he's doing. And it looks like Ryu has no, defense against him and just doesn't really know, how to respond here. And then I guess there's a point. Oh, that was pretty cool too. He does that strike and he knocks off Ryu's Band-Aid, which I saw that part in the trailer for the anime, and I thought that is where he got it from, because I saw him knock it off, but that's also where you could see the blood again, the cut, and I was like, oh man, is that what happened there? I didn't know, but this was a really interesting fight. What did you guys kind of think of everything that's unfolding right here?
The answer lies in the heart of battle. Like that's essentially where it's just like, oh, that's what my dad meant, and you just like wait 15 years just like not knowing, just like, okay, old man, whatever you say. And he has that Ryu moment where it's just like, oh, maybe strength isn't the only stat I need to start dumping into. Maybe I should just start like moving around and letting his momentum get the best of him or something like that. And then he just becomes like this blocking ninja.
Yeah.
I think there was something to the effect his father tells him that there's going to be moments when he's going to fight someone, I guess your opponent's going to be stronger than you. You kind of have to accept that and scrutinize their movements and find a way to win. And I think once he accepts that, he's not stronger than him, and he accepts it and kind of becomes more calm, and then he can kind of go into that and whip some ass. But Scotty, you're about to say something.
I was waiting for him to do the Dragon Ball move that blocks anything in the world and just cross his arms. It doesn't matter what's getting thrown at you. Bullets, fists, anything. You just cross your arms and you're good to go.
It's basically the moment in all the Hulk Hogan movies matches where he like hulks up and he's just throwing punches and nothing gets through. But he ends up beating Chai. And as he's doing that, we hear the Shenmue theme in the background and Shinwa again reciting the poem. I thought that was just a beautiful way of how we're kind of wrapping this whole scene up.
Yeah.
And then after that, Go ahead.
There's one thing. Sorry, there's one. This is what my random thing. I kept noticing random things in this. I don't know if you notice. So before the fight with Chai, he's outside by the tree and everything, and then he stands in the doorway, and that's when Chai sort of jumps on him. Suddenly, he's got no shoes on. Like,
Yeah, Rio. Well, even in the heat of battle, he respects. He has respect.
It's just one of those things. I was like, his shoes have disappeared.
Yeah.
How's that happened? Yeah.
It would have been great if they showed that animation from the game where you walk out and it shows like him taking his shoes off and stepping into the dojo, and then the next thing is like Chai punching him in the face.
Yeah, I guess I just got to assume that's what's happened, but it's weird that he's like, oh, someone's in there. I'm gonna have to investigate this. Better take my shoes off. But yeah, it's just quite funny. But yeah, I love that Chai fight. Oh, that's good. It's kind of a bit of a trope in like how he's unlocked what his father was telling him all these years, but I liked it. I liked the way they did it. So yeah.
But in the next scene afterwards, we see Ryu again talking to Ine-san and Fukusan, and he's basically telling them like, "Hey, I'm the police aren't gonna do nothing. I'm handling shit now, and nothing you can do is gonna stop me, basically." And so Ine-san reluctantly accepts Ryu's decision and gives him a letter that was addressed to his father. She's like, "Oh, yeah, by the way, this came in the mail like 4 or 5 days ago. I was not going to give it to you, but since you're really pissed off right now, here it is. It's a letter from Yandao Zoo." And
I thought it was going to be his allowance.
that would be hilarious. You hear the money go up.
Yeah. Here's $5.
Oh, that's so good.
And then, as the episode kind of ends from there, we see again Londi and Shinhwa again. So it kind of gives us some foreshadowing. And that's basically where the episode ends. And that, man, wow, that was a lot happened in that first episode. So now that it's over and we've finished it, I've watched it several times. Scott, you said you've watched both the dubbed and the sub version. Yeah, let's go around and kind of talk about just overall thoughts, and I guess if you want to give it a 1 out of 5 rating of how you would rate this first episode, what do you think?
It laid out a lot, and a lot of anime. Another kind of anime trope is almost nothing happens in the first episode until like the last scene. So I was happy that we got so much and more than the game gave us. And I'm sure people are like out there saying like, all right, so this is about 8 hours into the game now is where we are. Like it felt like it covered a lot of ground, which was really cool, but also didn't scratch the surface. So I enjoyed it, but I'm also a big fan of Shenmue, so I don't know how to look at this unbiasedly, like if this is if that's even a word, if this is a good anime, or if it's like even a show that people having no knowledge of Shenmue or anime could just watch and be like, I want to play this game now. But I liked it.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I will say I got my kids to watch it with me, and I thought that might be a good kind of litmus test to someone for someone who who's never seen or really played the games at all. Like, could this be something you could introduce someone to, having not seen it or watched any of the source material before, but enjoys anime, enjoys One Punch Man, and I can't remember the other. Was it Attack on Titan that the director did as well? I can't remember what it was. But he likes stuff like that, so I wanted to see. And I think he liked it a little bit, but I still think it's just like it may not be for him, just this kind of anime itself. But yeah, that's kind of where he was from. But do you have a rating you would give it out of 5 if you had to give just this one episode? I know you said it's hard to look at it without those kind of rose-tinted glasses a little bit, but if you're just looking at it based on this one episode, what do you think?
I mean, it had action and drama and comedy, and I would give it 4 Lord of the Rings LARPers out of 5.
That sounds fair. Antichrist, over to you. What do you think? What are your overall thoughts?
I think that it's a solid first episode. It covers a lot of ground. I wish that they would be. It could just be the character, but Rio is not a very passionate individual. He's just kind of like living his life. Even when like confronted with the ideal or the option of hunting down his father's killers, it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of figuring myself out. Which, I mean, there is a little bit of a charm to that, where it's like he's legitimately just trying to carve his own path in taking on this challenge. But overall, no, I thought that everything was pretty good. I'm gonna give it like a strong 3 to light 4. I don't hate it, and this is just going to further cement that I think Shenmue should have been an anime and not a video game.
I think that's fair.
Nice.
Graham, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think for a fan of the game, it does a lot of fan service. So like I say, the scene with the fight in the dojo and stuff, that whole thing was almost shot for shot like in the video game. And there's like certain other little nods that I've sort of mentioned about like the snow and some of the conversations they have. The way they weave them in, they may not be always in the same order, but they're part of the game. They're part of what made the story in the game, and I love the fact that they've done those and the way they've managed to introduce certain characters who are part of the game as well. So yeah, as a fan of the game, I really enjoyed this first episode, and like Scotty said, I feel like they've managed to cram quite a lot into the first episode, but not go over the top, just enough to introduce you to the characters, to the idea of what is going to happen, like set you up for the rest of the anime. So yeah, for me, I'm going to say, I'm going to say 4 out of 5. Very strong 4 out of 5. I feel like I don't know what could make it a 5 out of 5, but hopefully some other episodes later in the series will be a 5 out of 5. But yeah, I'm very happy with what they've done here. It's great.
Yeah, that was well said, Graham. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think this was a strong episode. They packed so much into this. The thing I would have liked to have seen a little bit, I would have liked to have seen that the tournament. I would have liked to see more from there. Maybe a little bit longer fight scenes, to see Ryu kind of going through more of the local competition there, and maybe seeing some of the other stuff. But I get it. That
they only have 21 minutes.
Right, and I get that. I'm just trying to look at some aspects of this that maybe I would have liked to see more of, because I was very happy with it overall. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 in this opening episode. I think they did a great job. They did a good job of sprinkling in those little and kind of filling in those nuggets of bits of what was happening between these key moments that you see in the game. And just kind of fleshing out the personalities of all these characters. And I think finishing in, you really, it's crazy because there's so much where they can go with this. Obviously, we know where they're going to go, but it kind of sets Ryu off on this journey that they're going to go on. And I'm really excited about that.
You mentioned, Chris, like things you wished were in there. The only thing or things to add to it, maybe, I kind of wish we got to see the ramen they were eating, because I love just how food looks in anime and like in the Yakuza games and stuff. Like I
was going to mention the Yakuza games, yeah.
Yeah, like even if it was just that one still shot of just like the steaming bowl, and then like, oh, their conversation and their dinner happens, to like show time passed or whatever. But yeah, the only like critique I have is it was weird seeing the big street, or like a view of the street they were walking on, because it felt like a bigger actual city. Whereas in the game, it feels like this small little town. That was my only... I prefer the small little town, but we'll see how they portray the rest of the stuff. But I'm very curious to see what they do about all the mini-game stuff, because that is like a big part of Shenmue for people.
Yeah.
I want to see if we get like them just being at an arcade for no reason, or like, I got this Gashupon, or like Ryo chugs a can of Coke for no reason, So
yeah, I wonder if they're weaving any of the QTE scenes, like where the kid kicks a football at him randomly.
Yeah,
and you have to like quickly grab it.
As cool as it would be, I doubt we'll get that. Although it would be neat if we can get an arcade scene, and I mean we will get that. We do. We've seen that he will be in an arcade, but it'll be neat to see if we get some of those background. You can actually hear some of the games being played, stuff like that. That would be great. So. And
it'd be cool if he can like get music for his Walkman and also have a Sega Saturn randomly under his TV.
It's not going to be the video game.
I will lose my mind if there is a Sega Saturn in this series. I will lose my mind.
Okay,
There's no reason for it to be in there.
So I think that's going to wrap it up for this first episode of Talking Shenmue. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. We'll definitely bring you back on again. Like I said, we want to get more members of the Shenmue community. We'll also get some other members of the Megavision staff, and you guys will definitely be back on again many times, I hope. Thank you again. And man, this has been a great first episode of the Shenmue the Anime. I'm so excited for where we go from here, right, you guys?
Yeah, awesome.
I'm
Thanks
excited.
for having us on.
Yep. All right. See you next week.
More Tom.
See ya.